Go.
So, hey, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are right now and what time it is when you watch the replay, if you're not here live. Welcome. Gosh, this is probably going to be a little bit of everything, but we're certainly going to try to keep it on the rails of AI learning, AI and nonprofits, the GPT store, and in particular, why and how everyone should not be on the sidelines anymore, but should be fully engaged in what our future is going to be when AI is as ubiquitous as oxygen and as absolutely necessary. And I have one of my mentors, and I call Kyle my gateway drug to AI.
Sorry about that.
Kyle Shannon, and I'll ask him to introduce himself in more detail. But one of the reasons why I wanted to bring Kyle on is to introduce you all from my communities, if you don't already know Kyle, to him and to the way that he is teaching how to learn AI. Because that's really the thing that I've learned the most is how to approach it. We learn about new tools every day. We learn about new techniques every day. But really the thing that I've taken away from getting to know Kyle is just how important it is to have a beginner's mindset. The fact that no one is an expert. And so it's okay to show up and not really know what the heck you're doing. It's okay to show up and not even know what ChatGPT is, what OpenAI is, what a large language model is, what AI even is. And Kyle will give you an on-ramp to that. All you got to do is show up on LinkedIn every night, like Kyle. But even
on TikTok every night.
Sorry, TikTok.
LinkedIn's only Fridays.
And so I'm going to turn it over to you and have you do a little intro of yourself. I'm going to check on LinkedIn to make sure that everything is going smoothly.
Okay, great. Fantastic. So hey, everybody. My name is Kyle Shannon. I'm an entrepreneur and an AI community builder, although that seems kind of squishy and weird to me, but my entrepreneurial background, I'm a storyteller by training. I have a degree in acting. I moved to New York City out of school to pursue a life in the arts. Started and ran a theater company, wrote a bunch of screenplays. And then in the mid-90s, discovered the World Wide Web and just kind of stumbled upon it. And it was very, very early. It felt a lot like what this AI stuff feels like now. And I co-founded agency.com, which was one of the first digital agencies. And I created Urban Desires, which was an art and culture magazine, which was one of the first art and culture magazines on the internet. And then I also started a group called the World Wide Web Artist Consortium, which sounds really fancy. And it ended up becoming a big group. But the impetus for starting the group was I knew that there must be people that know more about this World Wide Web stuff than I did. So I figure if I start a group, I'll get people in the room that knew more than I did. And what I learned was that we were so early that nobody knew anything, that everybody was trying to figure it out. You couldn't get a degree in web development. You couldn't get a degree in internet other than internet protocols, right? So this was a very new thing, and what the World Wide Web did was it kind of opened the power of the internet to normal people that weren't developers, people that weren't engineers and programmers and researchers. So I did that. Agency.com. I was there for 7 years, but we ended up building a lot of the websites for the Fortune 500. So really amazing time to be part of riding that wave up. I thought that would be the last time in my life that happened. Turns out that's not the case. I sold that in 2002 to Omnicom, and in 2012 started Storyvine, which is my current company. And it's a video storytelling platform. So had an epiphany about short form video back when YouTube first came out in 2005, and that became Storyvine. And the last year, as I've been learning more and more about AI, I've been thinking about how I incorporate that into an almost 12-year-old company without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which has been really fascinating, at least for me. And then over the past year, a week after ChatGPT launched, I started the AI Salon, and I started a TikTok channel, because at 58, why not start a TikTok channel? so, so I did that. And what the TikTok channel has become a nightly just jam session with people that are curious about AI. And so we have a lot of people that show up there regularly, and we have a lot of people that just pass through. And then the AI Salon is a more sort of permanent home where you can hang out with other people that are curious about this AI stuff. And to your point, Anne, about learning how to learn this stuff. Again, the lessons I'm bringing from the World Wide Web, we're so early in this that it feels like, oh, I've got to learn this tool. And, like one of the big talking points in 2023 is you've got to become a prompt engineer. It's going to be the job of the future. And like now we're starting to see that as we go into 2024, these systems are going to be doing the prompting for you. You just need to sort of know what you want. And a lot of the prompting is going to happen. So everything is shifting all the time. So the only way that you can realistically be in this game right now is to just be in that sort of beginner's mindset perpetually and just build stuff knowing that what you're going to build is going to be crappy. It's going to be obsolete and out of date 2 months or 2 weeks or 2 days from now. That doesn't matter. Build it anyway. Launch it. Assume it's awesome. Know that it's not. And then just understand that you're sort of stepping on a hamster wheel that is speeding up. Yeah. And that's the only thing. And know that you're not as far behind as you think you are. You know more than you think you do. And you're never going to be able to catch up. Never. Yeah. Like ever. Like I feel more clueless and less educated today than I did a year ago. And it's all I've been doing essentially 24/7 for 7 days a week for a year and a half.
Yeah. Yes. So a couple of like jumping off points for me from your share just now, like I'm like working my butt off to learn all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm so invested in like catching up. I've had to let go of that because it's actually a trap.
Because catching up to who? Catching up to what?
Catching up to who? To in what regard? And so, like, I actually was sort of bitter that OpenAI snuck in the announcement about the Teams thing. Like, here we all were watching for the store, and then all of a sudden we find out little Teams, and we don't know what we're doing. And the nerve of them to not tell us or leak it or something so that we would know within a few hours what the heck to do about the Teams thing. And this is for those who aren't, obsessed with this stuff. OpenAI, which is the company that hosts ChatGPT, which then led to the custom GPTs, which then led to the GPT store. They opened this GPT store this week, which some people are comparing to the early days of the Apple App Store. So, but then at the same time, they dropped information about this thing called Teams, where we can all work together on GPTs and and Chat GPT, and where our information won't be used for training the next models. It has all sorts of other bells and whistles that arguably are a bigger deal even than the GPT store. Mm-hmm. But because of my journey of letting go of being an expert, I still had an attitude about it because I was like, oh my God, great. Now I have to drop everything and learn something new. And I have to start emailing texting everybody and all the Slack channels to figure out what the heck is going on.
There's even a thing that they didn't drop that's also coming, which they're going to add persistent memory to ChatGPT. So it's going to start remembering your chats across chats, which is going to be a whole nother thing. Like there's a part of that that's really good. You won't have to keep retraining it. And there's a part of that like, well, wait, if I'm just demoing a chat to someone, I don't want that to go into my memory. So how do you opt out of it? So and that didn't launch. So that could drop next week.
That could drop next week. And
but again, that's the thing where I think you really do just have to get zen about this and just keep letting it go and just go, okay, yeah, okay, so I don't know anything again. Let me just learn enough about this to know what to pay attention to. And maybe that's kind of the skill right now, is just be educated enough to kind of know where the boundaries are, and then just play within the boundaries.
Play within the boundaries. And I think one of the things that people could consider as they kind of customize or curate their learning on AI is to choose a couple of thought leaders to follow and choose a couple of tools to go kind of deep into,
Yep.
and to use the lens of your own use cases, the things that are thorns in your side or opportunities that like make you stop and go, oh my God, this is an area for me to grow as a person, an area for me to grow my business, grow as a thought leader, grow as a, as a member of civic society. So that's one thing I would recommend. And while we're here, Kyle, I think it'd be helpful for us to let people know who we learn from. So why don't you share your list of folks who you find most informative for you?
I've got 4 that I recommend pretty consistently. First one is Ethan Mullock, who is a Wharton Business School professor. He's got a blog called One Useful Thing. Is it One Useful Thing? I think it's oneusefulthing.org. But Ethan Mullock, you should follow him on LinkedIn. You should follow him on Twitter, and you should follow him on his blog. He posts mostly daily and really insightful stuff. He cites studies, things like that. Next guy is David Shapiro on YouTube at Dave Shap, DAVESHAP on YouTube. He's a bit more geeky, but about once or twice a week, he'll do like a long form presentation on sort of what's the world going to be like when AGI gets here. And then he talks about what AGI is and what the implications are. So if you want to geek out, he's got open source projects you can join. He's very technical, but his higher level stuff is very well thought out. He just did one on the impact on education, like what happens to education when AGI gets here. Really interesting dude. Then you've got Paul Reitzer, Roetzer, from the Marketing AI Institute. The Marketing AI Institute was started 5 years ago, and considering that ChatGPT's only been here for a year, they were way early. So he's very, very thoughtful about this stuff. And then the 4th one is Rachel Woods from TikTok, who is very much about AI operations and bringing AI into your business in a responsible way. So those are the 4 that I follow.
Perfect. I'll share a couple reflections on those folks, and then a couple more that I've started following. So Rachel Woods, her community is called the AI Exchange, and that is a very rich community for learning, including the fact that they do member-led jam sessions. So that brings a ton of diversity into the learnings, and they have courses. So for example, I learned the master prompting method through that course, which taught me all sorts of things that I didn't know. It's pretty sophisticated. Like, let me put it this way. If you understand the master method, you can modify it. You can still write really, cheap and cheerful prompts and get what you want. Or if you need to do something sophisticated, you have the skills to do that in the format and et cetera. And you get to try them out with other people who are learning at the same pace that you are. So that community is really awesome. I'd also add, for some reason, I haven't dove in with David Shapiro. I'm going to, especially because the education piece. But I tried to focus. And so Ethan Malik is one of my, absolutely everything he writes and drops, I read. Paul Retzer, absolutely. I'm actually going to the conference in October in Cleveland.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. I also follow Connor Grennan closely. I find his stuff to be super relevant. Like, it's not too high level. It's not too not just practical. It's right there in the middle, and relevant to higher at his, he's at NYU as a professor in the business school, maybe management. And I love his stuff. And I love the people who follow him as well. So on LinkedIn, his comment section tends to be I feel like my people, my level and stuff. So that's really good. And then I wanted to share. The AI Breakdown is a podcast I listen to every morning before I even get out of bed, because I work with so many people on the East Coast, and Nathaniel drops those every single day. There's a 7-minute version, and then there's like a 15-minute version. And I just kind of get my like quick hit. And again, never to feel like an expert, but at least I feel like I'm not behind the 8 ball when I wake up, because I'm on the West Coast. So, and then a new one that I think has a lot of legs that people can get in on the ground floor and help shape the content is this guy who is on LinkedIn. His name is Dan Sanchez. He just launched a podcast called AI Micro Skills. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying about, using your own most important use cases. So his take is, there are a lot of people out here talking like high level, right? And a lot of people talking about like why it's bad. But where the kind of gap can often be is like, how do you actually use this stuff? Like, tell me, what is the name of the company? What is the name of the website? What are you doing with it? And so he had me on to talk about applications in the nonprofit sector, which apply to everybody else.
Yes.
I talked about, recording meetings and doing meeting follow-up and blah, blah, blah. So that's one that's kind of neat for people to get on. It's on Spotify and it's on YouTube and on LinkedIn. So that's AI Micro Skills. And the guy's name is Dan Sanchez.
You inspired me. I've got one more.
What is it?
So there's a guy, he's not an AI guy necessarily, but Robert Scoble, on Twitter, he's been kind of a tech leading voice and just sort of tech commentary for decades. He was an Apple fanboy, but what he's done is he's got all sorts of lists. So if you go to Twitter and you go to Robert Scoble and go to his lists, he's got 10 or 11 or 12 lists of like AI companies, AI CEOs, AI thought leaders, whatever. He's got all these different AI artists, AI musicians. So just go find his lists and follow those lists. If you want to up your Twitter game, just go follow lists like that. And then you can also set up TweetDeck on Twitter, on X, which is this column-based thing where you can make each one of these lists a column. And so you can have a single dashboard of all these different feeds, basically.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wait, let me write it in the chat. What's that? How do we find that?
Yeah, TweetDeck. Nobody knows about TweetDeck, and he's always talking about it. Twitter acquired TweetDeck years ago. So I think hang on, let me see what it is.
So while you are doing that, I will share that there are a couple of principles from the AI Salon that have been particularly meaningful to me. And one of them is inclusion and how important that is for all the work that we do. And sometimes what that looks like in my life is sharing about AI in spaces where I know I'm not winning any friends by talking about it. And being willing,
I think it's
right?
So
being
important.
willing to say the stuff that people don't want to hear. An example for me has been, I've been paid to write my whole life. I've been in, we could call it a writing apprenticeship my whole life, right? I went to college, I went to grad school. I then got a job that's marketing adjacent. I do fundraising. I always have to write effectively, and people have paid me to perfect that craft. I've begun my grieving process. It's not that the written word is not continuing to be important, but what I generate from the depths of my soul, from the recesses of my intellect, is not as valuable unless it provides insights and knowledge that can lead to second order thinking. And most of that can be significantly up-leveled by working with large language models. And so, if you link it into like how AI is being used in education, I think that's a critical component. So inclusion in education involves totally changing the way that we teach. And I get that, and I empathize with my colleagues in higher ed. I empathize with people who have made their bread and butter by writing. and encourage everybody to start thinking about, like, real fast, what that means for your career. And we have a question about careers here, but what does that mean for your career? And a use case that I'll provide is, we've started working with writers who are trained in AI, who are shifting their careers. We are now hiring those people to work on our content. We are not hiring anyone. And we're just a little organization, like we're just a little company. But we've already gotten to the point where it's actually not affordable for us to hire people without generative AI skills, because then we have to teach them.
Yeah, and you also have the turnaround time is, 10 times as long or 100 times as long, right? So that idea of, being AI literate right now is going to get you jobs in the next 18 months just because you're AI literate. We used to joke in the 90s that if you could spell HTML, you could get a job, right? And I feel like it's even easier now. If you can spell AI, you can get a job, right? Because increasingly people are going to be looking for not just someone to come in and do the work, but someone who's got that mindset of, oh, you're paying attention to this because I'm not. Can you come in and help us pay attention to that? So I think that's a big thing. To the inclusion and the diversity and the empathy thing, why I think that's really important is that a lot of people are afraid right now. A lot of people have their guard up, right? That they're afraid of AI. They think the robots are going to kill us because Hollywood told them so. They think they need to be a Stanford mathematician to be able to do AI, so that I'm not smart enough. So a lot of people have the defenses up. In talking with them empathetically, like taking them in and say, yeah, I get that you're scared. Can I just show you something cool? and just, in spite of knowing that they don't want to hear it, showing it to them anyway. What will happen is one of those guards will drop, and then they'll actually go look at it and go, oh, I didn't know it could do that, or I didn't know that's what it was. Oh, this is really exciting. And then all of a sudden, one more person isn't scared. And it's kind of the whole point of my TikTok channel and the AI Salon, quite frankly, is to create a safe place where people who are curious about this can come and invite other people who might not be as curious to come and in a safe way, not be judged that they're just beginning, not be judged that they don't have a math degree from Stanford, right? I've got a degree in acting. You can even have that and be welcome in our community. Theatricals welcome.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. So yes, the other thing that I wanted to highlight is empathy. And that's actually where I have found on my journey, I fall down. I need to do some personal work on this, but I find myself less and less empathetic to the naysayers.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm working hard. I'm consciously, my strategy has just been acknowledge whatever their cynicism is and essentially just ignore it and keep talking.
Ignore it.
Yes. It's not super empathetic, but I at least acknowledge it. So it's in the neighborhood of empathy.
Yes, it's in the neighborhood. It's empathy adjacent. One of the reasons why I got into this whole thing, and one of the primary core values of the company that I founded with other AI leaders called Light Magic AI, we are here because we're passionate about upending the power structure, knowing that so many of the people who have power and proximity to power are not going to be the early adopters. Meanwhile, those of us who are hungrier for that power potentially, or willing to show up and make fools of ourselves, right? Like some people in positions of power, they literally cannot show up and make a fool of themselves. They must be the smartest person in the room, whether they've trained themselves to that to be, or their stockholders need them to be that way. But by putting these tools in the hands of people who have been marginalized and allowing them to do all the things, right, to choose their own path and to start providing them with like coaching on how to craft a career out of this stuff, I think that is where we're going to see one of the most cataclysmic changes in our society, and it's what we're super excited about.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's one of the things I'm most excited about, because it's all you have to do is sort of get over the hump of I can't do this, or this thing's evil, or like, you just need to try it. And then when you try it, within whatever it is, 5 minutes, a half an hour, the first hour, you'll have what we lovingly call your Kevin McAllister moment. And then when you have that, you really can't go back from it. Like, you actually understand, oh, it can do that?
Yeah.
But wait, what else can it do? Certainly
Mhm.
it can't do what I'm expert at. Oh, it can do that
Oh,
too? And then at that point, then you discover you've got access to this world of knowledge and this world of skills
yeah.
that this thing can level you up on. And I think for people that, have been disenfranchised, the amount of level up is proportionally higher. In fact, Ethan Mullick, one of the studies that he cited, basically said within an organization, they gave access to ChatGPT to all the players,
Mhm.
and they all leveled up significantly, but the underperformers leveled up like 2.5 times what the high performers did. So it basically, brought the low performers up in parity with the high performers. Like, that's massive.
That is massive. That's massive.
Yeah.
So kind of jumping off here to address one of the questions in the comments. So those people are now going to find themselves as go-to resources for people at all levels of
AI literate people?
the AI literate
Yeah.
people, right? The ones who have gone from here to here because they've put in the work to learn how to use the tools. They're going to be the ones who spot the janky content, right?
Mhm.
They're going to be the ones who go to a colleague. I can tell you cut and pasted that straight from ChatGPT. It has the words unleash, beacon. It uses symphony metaphors. Like,
Exactly.
like, come talk to me. I'll teach you a couple of my hacks with ChatGPT.
Yep.
Now you're in conversation with people above you in an organizational chart. So to Grant's question, it's basic, but that's one of the ways that you can grow your career, is being in proximity to people who historically you may not have, and who are now putting you in their minds in the box of expert, right? In the box of someone who's very, very helpful. The analogy I'll use is, a lot of us who've been employees probably, and who are like, Gen X-ish, probably remember an era where you learned who in your organization didn't know how to use Excel, right? You're like, there's the people who know how to use Excel, and then there's the people I want to work with, right?
Yep.
There's the people who don't know how, and then there's the people who can get shit done.
Yep.
It's like that, but on steroids.
It's like that, but on steroids. I like Hunter Canning said, enigma. Mine is always enigma. Yeah. You will absolutely feel like an enigma right now, where people will tell you they're tired of hearing this crap. They will say, oh, we can't do that here. Just lean into being the enigma, lean into doing it. The other thing that I'll share, and that one of the things that strikes me about this stuff is, anyone that I know that is AI literate, that's using these tools regularly, they don't use it like Google. Meaning when you first start using it, because it kind of looks like a Google search box, you just type in your prompt and you expect an answer. And so one of the early mistakes is, you type in your prompt, write me a business letter, or write me a blog post, and it gives you a blog post, and you copy and paste it, because that's how we've used Google in the past, right? Give the prompt, do the thing. This isn't like that. Everyone that I know that uses this, it's more like ChatGPT is a collaborator, and there's a lot of back and forth, right? Give me a thing, read the thing. Oh, that's kind of crappy. In fact, I just did for Cindy Kuhn. She's working on a book project, and I took a talk that I gave. I took the transcript of it. I had ChatGPT translate that transcript into an outline for a chapter of a book. Then I had it write the chapter of the book. I thought, oh, that's really good, except it was missing some little detailed stories. So I had to put brackets in where I'd go fill in my detailed stories. When I actually started adding in my stories, I essentially rewrote the entire thing from the ground up. I kept almost none of what ChatGPT wrote other than the skeleton, because as I started to add in real writing, I was like, oh, well, this is redundant now. Oh, it's actually repeated this thing 3 times. Like there were just big chunks of it that I just copied and pasted and threw out, right? And so it's the work is almost always like that right now.
Yep.
I think over time, it will get more automated, but right now it's still very much a collaboration with the tool.
Totally agree. I'll share like how oh gosh, I mean, to talk about the whole arc of how to use AI for a project like that is too much. Like that could be a 5-hour lesson. But I will share that like one of the things that I like to do is just organize the thoughts and ideas into headings. So let's say you've got a talk that you've given and an article and some emails you wrote to random people about a particular concept. Put all that stuff into ChatGPT and just say, what is this? What's the thread here? What are the headings, right?
Yep.
Like, because sometimes I don't even know like what my point is. Like, what's the thesis of this? Like, what's the takeaway? And we do that. We consider it one of our like boring use cases, but boring is our word of the year. Boring use cases is, taking our meeting transcripts and talking to them because it's such a huge level up. Like, we did a session yesterday with Suzanne Welker Jurgens and Kelly Camp. And I took the transcript from that and I created a download for everybody on how to make your GPTs better. And I'll post, we had 20 recommendations just baked in there. Perfect. And it did it in 30 seconds. And now, my coordinator's making it look nice. Yeah. Takes a couple minutes. And now there's a resource that everybody who's into the GPT store can use.
Yep. It's the thing that I think is it's the most under talked about thing that ChatGPT does. Everyone talks about it writing stuff because I think that's the fantasy is you push the button and it makes crap, right?
Yeah.
But what it's really good at is analyzing other stuff you've got and sort of reformulating that other stuff you've got. The programmers call it refactoring the code, right? We're going to refactor it from this to that. Well, you can do that with writing as well, right? Refactor from transcript to blog post. Bang, there it is. Or to recommendations. Really good at that.
So a concrete use case for people who historically haven't been in positions of power, proximity to power, is to raise their hands, right? To say formally, like, I want to be part of creating a framework for our company, for how we use AI and how we don't use AI. I want to be part of an AI council, which can begin by you putting an hour on your own calendar and thinking about this. Then you can add one person. Then you can say to your bosses and your colleagues, hey, here are some things that we've been batting around. Can we have, can we do like a lunch and learn and just share? And it goes from there. And then all of a sudden, the vice presidents are talking to you.
Yep.
And now
and that may happen sooner than later. Like the minute you start talking about this stuff, you don't know who's listening. And you don't know who is like trying to figure this stuff out. Because this is, again, back to the early days of the web. A lot of times in the very early days, someone would come in, we want a website. We're like, okay, why do you want a website? Well, I was golfing and my buddy Bob, he runs this big company and he's got a website. So we need a website, right? And so that's going to start happening with this AI stuff. That someone's like, oh, you got to get into AI. We're not into AI. Who knows anything about AI? I don't know. Sally was talking about it. Give me Sally. They won't know who Sally is, but all of a sudden, Sally's meeting with the CEO or some VP where they wouldn't have before. So yeah, that's the value of just being the enigma is that as people get hungrier to figure this stuff out, they're going to look for experts. Oh, this is something I wanted to say about that. To the person in the AI salon and in my AI TikToks, to the person, everyone that has come in and said, oh, I got tapped on the shoulder to go be the expert, to go give a workshop, to go give a webinar, to go talk to the VP, to a person, they've all said, I don't think I'm ready. I'm not a leader. I'm not an expert. Why did they pick me? because you know more than they do. Even if it's this much more, don't discount the fact that if you know this much, it's way more than most people know. I'll give you a stat. McKinsey just released a report 2 months ago. At the beginning of 2023, 87% of people had not used ChatGPT. So we had a year to use it. At the end of 2023, it had gone from 87% haven't used it to 82% haven't used it. So that means 18% of people have used ChatGPT, which means at least half of them haven't used it. They used it once and never again, right? So we're talking single digit people even know what ChatGPT is, right? And so as little as you think you know, 90% of the people out there know less. So just forgive yourself for not being the expert. Just go be the expert. And literally, you just showing them, here's how ChatGPT works. Write a poem, make a table, write some code. Those 3 parlor tricks will blow people's minds, right?
Yeah. So. We're the 5th graders to the 4th graders. Like, and that's totally
it. Well, yeah, you don't need to be a PhD student. You can just be 5th grade good.
No,
because the 4th graders are just panicking right now. I wish I could be as cool as the 5th graders.
I wish I could be as cool as the 5th graders. They have, back in the day, like the welcome back Cotter lunch boxes.
Yeah.
So can you say a little bit more about how you think people will level up in their careers and also become more valuable on a personal level? That to Grant's question, which he also added, do you suppose it's like 10% input, 80% GPT, 10% editing? So maybe talk a little bit about writing as well.
Okay. So two very different things. I'll come back to the GPT one because that one's really interesting.
Yeah.
The leveling up thing is fascinating. So I think here's what shifts. If you're a liberal arts major and for your entire career you have not been valued because you're a horizontal thinker, and the real valuable people are the vertical, tactical execution people, the specialists, that script is about to flip. The implications of that is you may be good at 1 or 2 things, at sort of 100% of your capacity. And then there's 3 or 4 things where you're at 80%. And then there's a bunch, it goes down. It's a bell curve, right? What AI allows you to do is level up on things that you are really horrible at to like an 80% degree. So I would say if you're thinking about reinventing yourselves, one of the possibilities with AI is that you get to now choose if you want to do a career that you maybe couldn't have gone back. You would have historically had to go back to school for, right? Because, I don't know enough about history, but I really want to do this history thing. Well, now you've got access to all this knowledge. You could probably do that job now. So I would say if you're thinking about leveling up your career, don't just think about what your career is right now, but what it could be. What are your interests? What are the things that really turn you on? And maybe you really love making art, but you're a horrible artist. Well, now you can make good art. So that's that. Just expect to level up in lots of areas, not just one. With the GPT writing thing, so it's almost what you said, Grant. What I find with ChatGPT is ChatGPT, or insert your large language model here, will get me to 80% of what I want to create within about 5 minutes. Getting from 80% to the 100% is not just like 10% effort. It's like, so if I have 2 hours set aside for writing a piece, in the olden-timey world, 2022 and before, in the olden-timey world, that 2 hours would have been taken getting me to the 80% and maybe to sort of 90%. Like the 2 hours would have taken me to get to the first draft. What I'm finding now is that I get to that first draft within about 5 minutes, and it still takes me 2 hours to finish the piece because it got me there so fast that maybe it gives me new ideas, or maybe I go, oh, wait a minute, this one area is not researched enough. Let me go do some research on that. So I'm doing that in ChatGPT, and then I'm adding that to it. And then all of a sudden I've got this Frankenstein creation that there's a story somewhere in there. And so it's still net taking me about the same amount of time for a significant piece. For if it's short stuff, that's much quicker. But if you're talking about like a significant writing piece, it takes me about the same amount of time, but it's much well structured. It's much much better in its structure. It's much better in its content. It's much better in its scope than it ever was in the past. But it still takes the same amount of work. It's at a very different level. So that's been my experience.
Similarly, like I used to be obsessed with my work product. Like the thing that has been written is the thing of beauty. Now I see that as it's like a piece of a portfolio of communication. I'm looking at it as like, is it effective communication, or was it just a piece of writing? Like, did I move anything? Did I change anybody's mind? Did I start something or move something forward? Versus it's just a bunch of really good writing. What I consider my work product is the work that I'm doing with ChatGPT or another language model. It's my prompt that allows me to be an effective communicator again and again and again, right?
Well,
so
not just your prompt, but also the critical thinking of, once you've done the prompt, looking at the output and just putting your critical thinking mind on it, right? And you know, improving it even outside of the prompting. For me, the critical thinking thing that becomes the new superpower. So I do critical thinking to say, here's the kind of story I want to tell. Then I jump into ChatGPT, I generate some crap. Then I look at it. I put my critical thinking hat back on, and I'm like, is this good or not? No, it's bad. And historically, I wouldn't just throw something out if it was bad, because it would have taken me another 2 hours to get to the next first draft. So I'd have just kept working on the crappy thing. And go generate a thing. That's not the right thing, but it's close. But let me try something else. Throw that out. Try another one. Ooh, that's it, right? That's all. That's all the thinking in between the prompting that I think is where the skill is, or where the skill of the future, where the value is.
Where the value is, like, and those of us who are dabbling in this and willing to have it not work, right? This is a good segue into talking a little bit about the GPT store and the GPT for Good challenge, because those of us who are willing to do it and have it not work are going to be able to communicate more effectively and more consistently, right? We're going to be able to be, you know how sometimes, like at least in, in a work environment, you kind of have to say the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
Well, and in marketing, it's like, you got to tell them, you got to tell them what you're going to tell them. You got to tell them what you told them. Like, how about the opportunity to not invest, not feel like attached to an outcome, because you didn't spend 4 days working on a marketing plan. You just did it. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And like with Grant's question to how do you make yourself more valuable on a personal level, an example that I'll use is much like that, not feeling attached to the outcome of whatever I've done, planning a weekend adventure for my family where I know that I'm going to have to pitch it, right? Like once everybody gets out of bed, I'm going to be like, we're going to the coast. But now I've spent instead of getting all the guidebooks out and doing all the research on OpenTable and what is the weather and all this stuff, I very quickly put in, so-and-so didn't bring boots. So-and-so wants clam chowder. So-and-so won't go in the car for more than 60 minutes and still have a good day, blah, blah, blah. And then I get an itinerary that I've beaten them to the punch. And because I didn't spend all that psychological energy on it, I'm like, if they don't want to go, that's cool. We can change the plan. So that's an example, Grant. I use it in my personal life to add value. And then mom's happy when, happy wife, happy life. Like I'm not bitter because.
They didn't love my itinerary I spent a week on. Yeah, exactly. The other thing, the other advantage of doing that kind of work, Anne, is the troubleshooting that you did to get the family planning itinerary right, the next time you do something for work, you'll run into the same problem. You're like, oh, I know how to solve this. I just solved this last week with the kid. Like the problem solving skills are transferable. So it literally doesn't matter what activity you're doing in AI, it will serve you at some point in the future. So just do stuff with it. Like start with a problem and say, how can I solve this with AI? And maybe you fail. And I would also argue if you spend 2 hours trying to solve a problem with AI and fail and have to start over with not AI, I would argue that that's 2 hours better spent than just solving it in the first place without AI. That what you will have learned in learning what it can't do is as valuable as learning what it can do.
100%. And I would be surprised if you spent 2 hours and didn't have your Kevin McAllister moment.
Exactly. Exactly.
So can you talk a little bit about the GPT for Good challenge that we did? And then let's talk a little bit about GPTs in general and the store. And before we do that, you asked about the QR code. This is my favorite GPT.
Oh,
so
nice.
if people want to try it, it is a thank you letter generator for fundraisers that can also be used as like a congratulations letter, a condolence, thank you for a friend, but it's optimized for donors. And I would love to have people use it and send me feedback. At the very end, it gives my email address. So give it a whirl. It's showing up when you put, if you didn't have this QR code, you would put fundraising, thank you, note. And when you put thank in, it should come up and it'll say buy empowered fundraiser.
In the GPT store.
In the GPT store. If you have it, and you can use this if you have GPT Plus.
Yeah, GPT Plus.
ChatGPT Plus.
And how you get there, if you go to ChatGPT, if you haven't been to the ChatGPT store, it doesn't say GPT store. Click on the Explore GPTs button. That will take you to what they're calling the GPT store. And it's not really a store. It's more like a directory. Mm-hmm. And it's a crappy directory. But that's a whole separate conversation. Let's talk about GPT for Good.
It's a horrible directory.
It will get better. Just, right now everything is janky. So GPT for Good. So within the AI salon, people were getting very, very excited about making GPTs. And I was also showing people how to make them on my TikTok lives. One of the things that struck me that OpenAI did better than everyone else so far is they made, in my opinion, the first true no-code application developer. So you've got things like Zapier and Make and Bubble, and even creating bots within Poe. All of those tools, even though you don't need to learn a programming language, you need to understand programming logic to be able to stick the Lego parts together and understand what an API is and all that sort of stuff. What OpenAI did was they put a front end on it. They put an interface on it where you can literally just say, I want a GPT that educates people about hedgehogs, and it will make you a hedgehog specific GPT. It is truly no code. And then in talking with you, Anne, one of the things that you said is there's such fear in the nonprofit space that you and I both recognize that these AI tools, the amount of impact that they can have on organizations that are chronically understaffed is like astounding, right? But what you said is every time you talk to these, there's so much fear there, they're not even willing to try it. So the idea with the GPT for Good challenge was, could we in a 24-hour period inspire people to just try making a GPT? Come, we'll teach you how to do it. We came up with a little cheat sheet for how to do it. And then you and I alternated every 3 hours over a 24-hour period and gave these little classes. And the AI Salon community came together and created 150 GPTs for nonprofits in that 24-hour period. It was absolutely remarkable. I still don't think I've caught up on my sleep, but really, really inspiring. And I think the thing that was most inspiring for me is how many people intended to come to 1 or 2 sessions and make 1 or 2 GPTs that came to like a lot of the sessions and made like a dozen GPTs or 20 GPTs. Like
Yes.
just absolutely
Yeah.
amazing. So, you know, that was it. And I just,
Yeah.
you know, I'm so glad we did it.
Me too. And it was a real revelation for me at a time when I was starting to feel a little bit worried, like, man, what's it going to take, for people to adopt? Because I'm thinking about 2024 as like the year of adoption, but then I started to think, maybe I'm a little bit, Pollyanna. But what I learned through the GPT challenge was a little bit more of what it takes to overcome some of the worry, which, by the way, I do empathize with the worry, with the worry and some of the like frustration barriers that people might hit. What I learned is that having a purpose for doing something is critical. So like if you do start with like, something that you actually need to have happen, like you need an itinerary for your family because you're going to a place that you've never been before and everybody wants to be well fed or they're going to be crabby or blah, blah, blah. So you have a purpose for it. And in our case, it was nonprofits, and people came to the table with the things that they were utterly passionate about, whether it was, animal rescue or Alzheimer's disease or cancer or missing persons or domestic violence or like tools for nonprofit workers to use. So they all had a purpose. And that was why we had people who were literally on with us for 24 hours. There were 5 people who came to pretty much everyone. So
did you hear what happened to TK?
What?
She got offered executive director of the Firefighters Museum.
No, she didn't.
Yeah. Well, she said, I got offered role of ED at the Firefighters Museum because of what she did in the GPT challenge.
So TK is this amazing leader, and she has a multi-generational connection to fire safety, including she's on the board of this firefighters museum in her region. She came to the table with a head full of steam, ready to make GPTs to support this nonprofit, which she did, and they were fire. And another
pun intended.
They were fire, pun intended, of course. She also won the prize, which was a $250 gift to the museum.
Yep, exactly.
To whoever won the prize, the raffle. So, man, she won. She's winning.
So
I freaking love. See, that's the thing. Like, we're seeing those kind of connections right and left, and not to diminish like it's every day. Like TK.
She earned it, but there's another benefit to doing AI stuff for other people, is that it takes the pressure off you to become the master of AI, right? If you sit down in front of ChatGPT and just see that bar and know that it can do anything, it's very intimidating. But if you have a friend that's trying to start up a crocheting business and they're stuck on how to come up with a name for the business, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. If you say, hey, I can help you do that. I'm trying to learn AI. Do you want me to help you come up with that? And we'll do it together. Oh, sure. That would be great. It takes the attention off you, and you learn so much more because they will have you problem solve things you wouldn't have done on your own. So it's just, so there's even a selfish benefit for, put the attention on someone else. They'll get some really good benefit out of it, but you'll get all this learning. So.
Yes. Oh my goodness gracious. That like made my day / weekend. Oh my goodness. Okay, so that was the GPT for Good challenge, and the GPT convos continue. So if folks on this call or on the replay want more information about GPTs and how to build bangers, go look at a video from yesterday where I interviewed 2 of our friends from the AI Salon on how to make really good GPTs, particularly for the store. So we're crowdsourcing a GPT for how to make GPTs, but we also made a PDF of how to make them specifically for the store. For example, keywords are critical. So I changed the name of mine just so I could have fundraising as the first
Oh,
word.
interesting.
And then I bumped up in the searches.
Interesting.
Before that, I was calling it personal lovely thank you note or something like that. Not getting me anywhere. Another one is for sure a call to
Yeah.
action. So if you're using your GPT as like a front door for people getting to know you, if you include your contact information, a call to action, and maybe even a link to another GPT, you're building a relationship with people. And along those same lines, I, after our conversation yesterday, made some edits to my GPT because Kelly Camp recommended giving yours more of a personality, more of a
Hmm.
voice. And so I went in and changed the language in my GPT to how I would talk to a friend on a weekend rather than, I'm your, it was like, hey, I'm Anne. I made this for you. You know, if you don't like it, cool or whatever.
You
Like
did you
if you
did that
need to
in your prompt or in the call to action?
in my
Yeah,
prompt.
so you got the tone of the GPT itself to be more close to you. I think that's just brilliant. Like anything that takes these things away from feeling like generic GPT is where they get quite powerful. So that's awesome.
Yes. Yes. Let's see. I dropped the link to our website because but I don't know if it actually popped up, but one of the things that is kind of an enduring, at least for now, legacy of the GPT for Challenge is that we have a free directory of really good GPTs that can help. Now, you know, who knows what will be monetized in the store, but one thing we know from our project is that we have a bunch of them that are going to be that will always be for free. And some of them are like, oh my gosh, so
Yeah,
amazing.
amazing.
So hopefully this went through. There's a bit.ly link that will get you to our directory,
I
which
don't
at
see it,
some
Ann. I don't
point,
think it went through. You might want to try again.
I know. Also, we just learned that you have comments on yours and I have comments on mine, which we didn't somehow or another know. So who knows? Um, so whenever I'm looking off screen, I'm like leaving comments in here, and we've got some really good ones. So what I'm wondering is, okay, so we've got 3 minutes.
Yeah, and
Why don't we talk
I've got to
about
leave right at the top of the hour.
Okay, perfect. Why don't you talk a little bit about like some use cases for Storyvine? So how have you used this to change some of your work that you've done? And I'll share like a couple of use cases. We had someone ask about where to go to find use cases, and I really think in some cases it's conversations like this. But I will also add that I have a whole big long list if you're interested.
Yeah, and the crappy answer to that question is every use case. Like where I would start is what's a problem that's bugging you in your life? Try to solve it with AI, right? Like you can likely do some major damage to the problems you're dealing with AI. In the case of Storyvine, we have a platform that automatically generates authentic video storytelling at scale. We have an app. Somebody answers questions in an app, goes up to the cloud. It makes a video. Well, one of the things that we've always wanted to do was be able to leverage that video really powerfully. So we built a tool called the Authenticity Engine, where you upload a video, you take a Storyvine video, it then creates a transcript, it chapterizes the video, it gives you key messages from the video, it generates a blog for the video, social posts, hashtags, and pull quotes automatically within about 60 seconds. So we went from, you output a video to you output this whole world of content around that story. So anyway, it's one.
So
I
good.
have to take off. So sorry to leave
I know.
so quickly.
Thank you, Kyle, and thank you everybody for watching. Appreciate you, and I'll see you on TikTok tonight.
Okay, great. See you later. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.